this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. We have a topic today that is one that I'm actually surprised has not been a focal point prior to today because it is so fundamental to all of us on our journeys in life, regardless of where we are. Our topic is going to be self-worth. So DeDee Cai, welcome to the show.
Yay. Thank you so much, Julia, for having me. I am so excited. And yes, I am delighted to be sharing anything and everything that I know about this topic. I mean, live, breathe, dream about this. So yes, I am here. And thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right. Well, share with us how this became of interest to you and how it is that you got to be doing the work that you are currently.
All right. So, as a first-generation immigrant, I have a blueprint of how I should start my life, as a teenager when I first moved to the States and how I was going to live my life and do what I need to do. So I was taught to go to school, do great, have a good position, and then behold, I'm going to be happy and fulfilled, right? Did all that, went to school. Not only that, worked full time when I was going to school. So I learned a lot when it comes to being self-independent and found myself in a position after graduation. And I looked around one day, a couple months into my job, and I was like, this is not it. Sitting in a cubicle is not my idea of fulfillment. And not that I was lied to. A lot of people around me at the time were definitely happy with that setting. But I realized it wasn't for me. And so at the same time, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to start a brick and mortar business with my mother. She wanted to open a restaurant business, and I didn't want to be stuck in a corporate position. So I said, why not? So I literally helped her as a business partner, built everything from the ground up with that restaurant, and you name it, right? From getting permits to getting the plumbing installed, getting the electrical wired, putting the roof over it, and name it, right? Hiring, marketing, front desk. Yes, I wore all of the hats. And which I'm super grateful for, because I've learned what I needed to learn and all of the what not to do so that I am in my position now. And all of that was super great. But at the same time, 3.5 years in, I found myself working 18-hour days. I didn't have time for myself nor my boyfriend at the time, my husband now, to actually be in a real relationship with him. It was great because I've got filled up by building a community. We were that hole in the wall that everyone knew. Everyone that walks through that door or calls on the phone, I knew exactly who it was and what they wanted to order. So it was really sweet to know that we were that community connector.
Sure.
And I love people. And so that was I have to say, the highlight of my experience. But on the flip side, the benefits didn't outweigh the hours and the being chained to the location. The moment that I realized that it's not what I really, not I really want to do, was I was on vacation with my boyfriend in the most beautiful place in the world, Venice, Italy. I was
Mm-hmm.
sitting in a really cute cafe and I just couldn't find myself to enjoy this cup of coffee that I'm like fascinated about just when I was in the state, just to be in Venice and staring at the telephone screen, waiting for someone to call because I'm so wired to put fire out, right? Like I was like, no one's calling me. Is everything okay? Like that was the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, this is once again not the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the American nightmare, more like. So I came back and told my mom, said, you know what, mom, this is not my vision of what my life should look like. And this is I'm not equipped to yeah, again, be bind in something that is going to hold me down. So fortunately, she was so gracious to agree to, yeah, no, honey, this is for you. And if it's not something that you want to do, let's not. And
Right.
so we basically closed down a restaurant, and I was wanting to take time for myself. And at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, my boyfriend proposed, and we were getting to get married. And I feel like this is the beginning of the most amazing, incredible life that like I ever envisioned. And tragedy hits. My best friend went missing 10 days before my wedding, and a week exactly before she was supposed to be with me in the wedding party, we found out that she killed herself.
Oh.
She committed suicide, yes. We buried her July 4th, and our wedding was July 7th. That story is significant, and this tragedy is significant because she suffered from depression and anxiety. And it was a rude awakening because I was suffering from the same, but in silence.
Mm-hmm.
I laugh because it's almost like if someone has to like, it's so tragic for me to consider, what do I want to do with my life, right? I have now two choices.
Yep.
Do I let myself go and eventually be in the dark and possibly do what she did? But
Yeah.
I vow to myself, no one ever has to go through that, because I know what it felt like to have to go from, being super happy getting married and then over here trying to bury your best friend. And so I vowed to myself that no one has to go through that. And in a second, like now, I know I want to say the survivor's guilt.
Okay.
But I never want to have to get anyone to ever consider that, right? And so I have the responsibility now to heal myself.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that means, I just decided to take a big step back and start taking care of my health on a physical level. I started exercising. I started practicing mindfulness, which led me into yoga, then led me into holistic health coaching. I got certified in holistic health coaching because I want to just learn for myself. But to be honest, that's how I discovered the whole coaching industry.
Yeah.
And everything came full circle because initially when I was in school, I actually have a background in cognitive psychology and
Okay.
counseling psychology because I wanted to be a therapist. So when I discovered that, I said, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I want to do, but even better because I don't have to worry about writing prescriptions and, the years of schooling. And so I launched my business. And yeah, I was really excited, but no one wanted to buy my holistic health coaching programs. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, once again, this is the third time in a row, right? That nothing is working. What am I supposed to do? But before I had even a chance to even consider giving up or giving in, I signed 3 clients in a row within 2 weeks because they wanted my expertise in helping them start businesses. So I
Yeah.
basically fell into business development and consulting. And that's how I started.
Mm-hmm.
5 years in, coaching my clients, I realized, why are these entrepreneurs always are struggling with the ups and down, the inconsistency? Like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
I dug deeper with my clients, and what I come to realize was that they were paying more attention to their businesses and they were not taking care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wait, why have I been able to overcome my own depression, anxiety, and all of the things? Well, because I refocused on myself. I started really focusing on how I was living, how I was breathing, what am I eating, like how am I exercising? And not only that, I became a self-development junkie. And so I was like, wait, what they're missing is not a strategy, because I'm giving them the strategy, but they always come back struggling because they're not executing. It's not the strategy. It's
Mm,
because they don't have the right mindset
okay.
to execute the strategies. So honestly, that's how I land to today with Fit to Profit is we teach and train women entrepreneurs how to really build themselves up from the inside out, physically, mentally, emotionally, and also spiritually, so they feel worthy, right? They feel confident to go after their goals and profit from it. That's why
Mhm.
fit. So you have to be holistically fit on all levels to be profitable in your business. And so that's really the personal journey which led me from one piece to the next and just building it. So yeah, that's my personal story and how Fit to Profit was formed.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. It is always so fascinating to me how people get to where they are. And there's very oftentimes a story behind it. And the therapist in me loves that. So tell us a little bit more about how self-worth ties in. When you started to describe when you were working with these entrepreneurs and you would see these highs and lows, it makes me think of individuals whose identity is really tied to their business. And that I'm sure we weave in the self-worth piece and how they ultimately feel about themselves and can so easily overlook their own needs when they're putting the business or their team or the customer or client ahead of themselves. So how did that show up in that space for you and how have you combated that?
Yeah. So you see how I stepped away from the restaurant business is not because I couldn't do it. I'm sure if I stuck with it, I would have been fine, but I was burnt out. I was completely not myself. I wasn't excited, and I put on this facade that things were great when I was not. So an example right there how I got burnt out is because I was not filling my own cup,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I was putting everyone else first. And I was trained to do that. Like I was trained to work hard, I was trained to prioritize, and I was trained to like be as resilient as possible. It doesn't matter what happened, and putting my needs second. So, and the reason why I couldn't sustain it and didn't have what I require to be successful to the
Mm-hmm.
point that I really want to is because I was not valuing my own needs.
Okay.
So, stepping back got me really clear that, oh, of course it's not going to work because you were doing it for everyone else, right? And so that's not going to work. And that's the first time. And then the second time was when I was working with clients, and it was almost like a reflection, of me when I was working in the restaurant business, how there was ups and downs in the restaurant business because I wasn't taking care of myself. But up until when I was coaching the clients and when I'm seeing the ups and downs, I was okay and I was able to sustain my business is because my lifestyle and how I was taking care of myself was different and my mindset was different.
Okay.
So that's when I, again, second time was when I made that connection of, wow, the more I focus on myself, the more I focus on growing myself as a person, then the business grows. And so I have the responsibility to teach that to this women as well. And what's interesting is when I first launched my business, I was also told to charge a certain rate because I was new in the industry. But I refused to. I refused to because I said, wait, no, I may be a new coach, but I have started my businesses. I have hired people. I have done all of the things. And I should be charging more for my experience. And that was another moment where I realized I am worthy. At least my experience is worthy, right? It's valuable. So I just basically started charging people 5 times what I was told I was supposed to charge. And it was all the belief that I could because I have experience. I have value to provide
Mm-hmm.
people. Yeah. So it just step by step, whatever it is I took and I could reflect on, oh, it's because I feel worthy enough for that little step. And then I was worthy enough for that. And then I was worthy enough for that. And then when I was completely immersed in focusing on myself on all levels, and I mean, I truly physically, mentally, emotionally, the last piece was spiritual, was when I was like, wow, what I do is valuable. And for me to be able to create the impact in the world, I have to teach other women to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always that next level of building self-worth. And truly what's really interesting is people won't talk about this is because it's like as if it's two separate things, like, oh, self-care and self-worth is separate. I'm telling you, it's not. Like, unless you know how to take care of yourself, you are not going to feel worthy to be successful.
Sure.
And if you don't feel worthy, you're not going to take care of yourself.
Right.
It's like you can't talk about one without the other. We're all intertwined. Like we're all interconnected. Our system works that way.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes it's like self-care is being talked about was like a separate thing. No, it gets to be part of how you build yourself up,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So
Makes sense. So you shared some of your process and how a lot of this came to light for you. So when you're working with a new client and they have a lot of those old messages and the narrative that they formed from previous experiences, and they may not be in a place that you're at, what is the process that you take them through to help them get more clarity and build up some of that self-worth if it's lacking?
yeah. What's really interesting, just like my journey too, right? And this is often the case for if you're a psychiatrist or a therapist, it's really zeroing in on the current belief system, right? Like, what are we believing? What's possible? Because our beliefs make our habits make our reality,
Sure.
right? And so I would always get them to really see what is the result they're having, and is that in alignment with their belief, because chances are it's true. So then I help them shift. Okay, then what are you thinking that is true and what is not true when it comes to, let's say, an limiting belief, right? Like we talk about limiting belief, self-talk, whatever you want to say it, however you want to term it, is that just the thought dictates the feeling. The feeling, it's, this already, right? Like, thought is everything. You could agree with me, right? Thought, feelings, action, and then result. And
Yeah.
we get to really shift first is the thoughts, which is AKA the belief oftentimes. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes the limiting beliefs are based on something that we have learned in the past or
Sure.
what is passed on to us and things like that. So I would always encourage anyone who wants to shift and look for a bigger way of being is to look at their belief system, right? And what they think success looks like for them. If they're not getting what they want out of their efforts right now, is to really consider, what do I believe that? And chances are, it's exactly the results, exactly the reflection of the belief, right? An example for me, for the longest time, I always thought that to be a good, successful business owner, I wouldn't be a good mom. So I tried to do everything to sabotage my business so I can stay being a good mom and not a business owner, good business owner. And so I was like, wait, if I was a great business owner and a great mom at the same time, what does that look like? So
Mm-hmm.
I have to shift, my belief system and really start adapting and trying it on, and then stepping into that version of myself to do what I need to do to have what I have today.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing with the individuals that you're working with? Because it's a concept that makes so much sense, but in reality, there are a lot of things that sabotage us as we're trying to make those shifts and increase our awareness. Are you seeing any commonalities among some of the clients that you work with? And what are some ways that you help them get unstuck?
Yeah. Yes, right. At the end of the day, Julia, right? We're all the same. Like, we might be different from different backgrounds and things, like we're all humans. We want the same exact everything. We want happiness, fulfillment, right? Connection, love. I mean, it doesn't go far beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the common barriers and what I call mental barriers are very similar,
Yeah.
right? It's usually fear, it's usually self-doubt, it's usually overwhelm, especially with today's society, right? We have so much going on. And I would say, yeah, I mean, the question is what do you want your life to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And then going after that. And we get to work on one piece of the puzzle at a time. right? It doesn't have to, the overwhelm happens when you're trying to fix everything, about yourself. But I
Sure.
would say, just like myself, I start with a physical, and then the emotional, and then the mental, and then the last piece was the spiritual, right? Like one step at a time,
Mm-hmm.
right? One step at a time, and just being mindful and then honoring, the process. So the biggest obstacle for my clients is just honestly is the self-worth piece. It's just really being self-disciplined and
Mm-hmm.
keeping your word to yourself, because it starts with that, right? It starts with, being truly responsible for everything that you have and that you don't already have, and just chipping away, a little bit at a time. And it's like a snowball effect. Like
Yeah.
one, like if you do one, it's compounds, like we call it. When you work on yourself, it compounds over time, just like
Sure.
interest, and it really does. Oftentimes you were like, wait, I kept this weight off for how long now? Oh my gosh, I don't even remember, because it compounds over time, and you only
Right.
have to do a little bit per day, but it's really consistency and the self-discipline.
Yeah.
But and I would say embrace all of it, like the fear, the self-doubt, the overwhelm, and just one step at a time, little by little.
Mm-hmm. And I love what you were saying about keeping promises to ourselves. I mean, it's one thing to have this sense of obligation to other people, and it's so much easier when someone else is affected by it. But so many of us do not hold ourselves to that same standard. So I think that's such an important reminder. So I'd love to hear how this maybe influenced, or hear more about your book.
Yes. So the book is backwards, but The Overcomer: How to Conquer Your Fear to Achieve Your Goals, right? I talked about fear being the number one mental barrier, and we're all afraid. And guess what? It's hardwired. Guess what, guys? We were born to be afraid so we can survive, right? Back in the hunting and gathering times, we have to be looking out because we could be a prey, right? Like people, like we're looking to be safe. So it's okay to have fear. However, to use it as a catalyst to your success, and knowing that it's like a thermometer to know that, oh, you're about to step into something like new, like, and using it as a encouragement to what's possible on the other side.
Sure.
So honestly, so the pandemic hits. I had to revamp everything in my business. And what's really interesting is I was just really afraid of my business, going down, in shambles. And rather than being sitting there being afraid, oh my gosh, I'm gonna do it, I just basically rechannel like all of my energy into something positive, was this book.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to short term write this book that I promised myself that I would, but actually have the time, because I actually was doing a lot of in-person meetings and things like that. But we were in lockdown, so I had more time. But I can't just sit there and be in a rut. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to write this book now. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing was like, I can really talk about fear exactly right now.
Yep.
And so the book is just really all about personal stories, how I started my business, some of stories that I have gathered from other entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
and just really sharing stories as an example of how you can overcome it all. That's why it's called The Overcomer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every obstacle, I believe, is an opportunity. So you can see how capable you are. Without the fear, without the challenges, you wouldn't know that you actually are that much more resilient than you think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the book
Sounds
is.
incredibly inspiring. I'm very interested to hear what that process was like of actually putting the book together, connecting with these people, putting their stories on paper. What was that like for you?
So what was really interesting is, like, sometimes when you want to do something, especially as an idea that's been sitting with you, you already have everything that you need. And here's what I mean by that. I was already podcasting. So I was already talking to people. I was already putting content together. I already had stories. So by the time I was like, I want to write this book, wait, where do I find content? All of that I just said, right? I got stories from when I did interviews with people on my podcast. I got stories when I was podcasting, and things that I have written that I haven't shared as blogs, etc., and things like that. I just put all of that together. There's a book.
Wow.
So I'm sure you have a book in you. Every single person of us, especially, we have a story to tell. I think it's a matter. I think the biggest piece here was the decision of being okay to share my stories,
Right.
because I mean, the last chapter of this book has pretty deep, dark, dramatic stories that I experienced as a teenager, you know, and things like that. So it's not so much putting into the content, but it's a mindset work around being okay with, are you ready to tell your story to the world? That's the biggest piece.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's something to marinate on for those of us listening. Everybody has a story in them. I love that. Not all of us will have the opportunity to share necessarily, but it sounds like, according to you, we all could. So tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so it's actually looking to be rebranded and relaunched, but it's called the Fear Factor Podcast. I'm looking to bringing it back. I have other focuses. I have a little guy now. He's going to start school soon, so I have to reprioritize my schedule. But that's what the podcast is. We'll relaunch it next year. But I am super excited about our new program we're launching is Mindset Mastery, really equipping women entrepreneurs with having the right mindset to charge your worth. So that way you can build a profitable business. Like I said, it takes the right mindset to really truly believe, no, I'm not charging that because I have so much more experience, or I'm not charging that because what I have to provide transforms lives, right? So it's really building that from the inside out and really getting someone to believe that what they have to give is so worthwhile. So I'm super excited about that. Not only that, haven't seen it. The reason why a lot of us are not believing in that next level of success, especially when it comes to monetary or money, is that we don't have a healthy relationship with money. So the program we get to handle that, in the program. Last but not least, you alluded to it, is really helping you to rewire some of the, limiting beliefs that we were raised with, and really shifting that with really deep, cognitive, and I want to say almost like transforming and upgrading your system and your mindset to rewire and shift to developing a new belief system for success.
Wonderful. So if anybody that is listening is interested in this program or intrigued by anything that you shared, what is the best way for them to follow your journey, learn more, and contact you?
Yeah, so I am a message away, truly. I am on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and also our website is www.fit2profit.com, all spelled out, F-I-T, fit, profit, P-R-O-P-I-T, profit.com, and send me a message, whatever it is that you're going through. My book is also on Amazon as well, too. You want to check that out. But I trust that with today's technology, if you want to find me, you will find me.
It's a beautiful thing.
Right?
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate everything that you shared today and for taking the time to be on the show.
Yes. Thank you again, Julia, for hosting this podcast, for doing what you do, because truly I believe that because of what you do, we all get to contribute collectively and make this world a better place. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Likewise.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.